Folks, it's that time of the week. It's time for Jungle Drums. I've got my good friend and fellow gamer, Sergeant J, with me this evening.
Hola.
Yeah, so, where to begin? I mean, we can have a bit of small talk. I mean, how you been? How you doing? What's going on?
Good. Not much. Enjoying life. How are you?
Yeah, same. Not too bad. Just, this and that. I see that today I was kind of busy anyway in the afternoon, but I saw that Destiny 2 servers are going to be going down anyway for maintenance, but I think the maintenance actually went really, really quick. I believe they'd scheduled it for 4 hours, and I think it only took 1 hour.
Wow, they're actually doing a maintenance that doesn't get extended. That's impressive.
Yeah, and then they also had a little hotfix they applied today as well, something to do with the keys from the raid are, I think, no longer getting removed from your inventory on reset.
That's all good then.
I'm going to have to read more about it later, because I'm assuming this week at Bungie's probably already out as well. I haven't had a chance to look at that.
Very good point, that is.
So we shall have to have a look at that later on. In the meantime, let's get started with the news, shall we? So first piece of news is all over the internet this week, but I sourced this particular article from Kotaku, and this, of course, is about EA shutting down Visceral Games. Visceral Games, of course, was the studio behind Battlefield Hardline, Dead Space, and they were actually working on a Star Wars game at the moment. And unfortunately, that's going to have to be revamped and punted or moved over to a different studio. But EA says, although it is going to be transferred to a different studio, that game is now going to be something completely different. So the quote directly from EA, Patrick Soderlund, I believe his name is, said, "Our Visceral studio has been developing an action-adventure title set in the Star Wars universe. In its current form, it was shaping up to be story-based, linear adventure game. Throughout the development process, we've been testing the game concept with players, listening to the feedback about what and how they want to play, and closely tracking fundamental shifts in the marketplace. It has become clear that to deliver an experience that players will want to come back to and enjoy for a long time to come, we need to pivot the design." He also added that Visceral is ramping down and closing, and we're in the midst of shifting as many of the team as possible to other project and teams at EA. So there we go. I mean, see, this is one that, if I'm brutally honest, don't get me wrong, I do have Dead Space 1 and 2. I've never really got into playing them that much, even so I want to. They look like really, really good games. It's just, again, finding the time to play these games.
Yep.
So this whole shutdown of Visceral didn't hit me in the feels like it did a lot of people. But anytime we see, a studio going down, it's always a shame. It's a shame for the industry. It's a shame for us as consumers, as gamers. But I suppose shit happens.
Fortunately, that is the case, isn't it?
It's a bit of a shame. There's been rumors for quite some time now that the Star Wars game that Visceral was working on was in trouble, and that studios all across EA were brought in to give them some help, try to give them some vision and direction. But basically, that game's now dead in the water, and they're going to be reshifting. It looks that, what are they saying here? There's been an update that a development team from across worldwide studios will take over development of Ragtag, led by the EA Vancouver team that has already been working on the project. They're going to use much of the work that has been done to date by Visceral, and the assets of Ragtag that have already been built will be the foundation of this new game. So, I suppose out of the ashes rises a phoenix, I guess? Could this be something positive? If, from the sound of things, if Visceral really was kind of struggling with the direction of this game, hate to sound like the bad guy, but maybe this is for the best. Not obviously for the people who work there, but for, us, the consumer, the gamers.
Well, yeah.
What did you... Are there many games from that list that you played? Did you ever play many of the Dead Spaces, Jay? Or
I actually didn't. To be fair, I played started playing as I always do. I start playing the first games in the series, and then it just falls apart due to time. Dead Space 1 was actually quite good for me. I played it. I quite enjoyed it. Kind of wish I got more into it and played it again. Again, with all the games, I end up starting to never finish off. Battlefield Hardline didn't play too much of.
No, I did the beta for that, I think, or the alpha. I can't remember one.
It wasn't. It was actually, from what I'm aware of, it was quite nice to change the Battlefield series slightly because of obviously what it was based on. If I'm correct, Hardline was a sort of cops robbers one. If I was correct, I'm correct. But yeah, so. But no, I haven't only played Dead Space 1. So again, same as you, really. I didn't say hit me much, but it is a shame though for the industry. There are obviously other people who were within those jobs as well.
Yeah. I mean, another horrible confession is this Star Wars game that Visceral was working on. That wasn't even on my radar, if I'm brutally honest.
I didn't even know about it, so you know.
There we go. See, I'm not the only one. Oh my! But yeah, so there was a lot of talk on social media this week about that. You know, it's just a shame whenever you see a studio that has made some quality titles. I mean, Dead Space is one of those. I think you could almost call it a cult classic because I don't think it necessarily was a huge success commercially, but it does have a very loyal fan base. I mean, we're talking. There's people that when they go to events like. Even this year at TwitchCon, there's people that are going to be cosplaying in Dead Space garb. You know, so their fans are definitely loyal.
Yep. Probably hit them more than most people in terms of with the company. Well, with the...
Right, speaking of games, next bit of news. Again, there's all sorts of sources for this over the internet. I went with a Game Zone this time around. And this was about yesterday's Destiny 2 Prestige Raid going live, and it was beat in 2 hours. So, yeah, as you can imagine, some of the hardcore or die-hard Destiny fans were kind of in an outrage over this, because if we look historically in the old game, whenever a hard mode came out, it took quite a while for most of these top-tier teams to crack that nut. I mean, if we're honest, right? I mean, Vault of Glass hard mode was fairly tricky. I don't even remember how long that took the first team to get it. I don't think Crota took that long.
No, Crota wasn't that difficult to be fair.
Taken King, King's Fall, that took quite a while. That took several hours. I do.
Well, Quest. Well, yeah. I don't think. We'll call it
Wrath of the Machine.
Yeah, that's the one. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I don't think that was to be fair, the normal version of that took, I think, the teams quite a while.
Is this Prestige? Because I was wondering about this thing. Is obviously you know after the footage and everything. Is this Prestige almost like a challenge mode kind of raid, or? This
is the thing, Jay. It kind of is. I mean, because on one hand, like I was expecting to see, you know, some differences when it comes to the revive tokens, for example. The only kind of key difference there is like you still only have one.
Yeah.
But the problem is if you die, you lose your token.
Ah, okay.
Right.
You can't sort of chain revive them as such.
Well, I mean you can, but it's kind of it makes it there's even, you know, less of a pool of these tokens because, like you say, if you could technically kind of chain revive, but this time, instead of when one person dies, you're losing one token. Now, for each death, you lose two tokens. The person who dies and the person who revives. So it makes it quite a bit more challenging. But yeah, basically, in a Prestige Raid launch, Clan Redeem are currently, they've been given, you know, the title of World's First. There's a little bit of debate about that on the internet because Bungie was adamant about, look, you know, because it took them actually quite a while to confirm this, Jay. I'd watched, you know, saw them do it, and then it was ages until it was confirmed on Twitter. And, you know, this was allegedly so they could check whether it was legit or not. And then after the fact, you know, it's still a bit unclear if an exploit was used. But, oh well. But kind of some of the key changes that happened with the Prestige Raid were, yes, everything hit harder. Like the Castellum, right? You know the middle bit, the Castellum? When I was watching it, honestly, I thought the Castellum looked harder than Callus normal. Because quite a few of the teams decided to skip the Castellum and just go through the underbelly. But King Gathalion and his team, Broman, T-Rex, Rebel Eyes, Gunny, those guys, they opted to go via the Castellum. So the first challenge was the Gauntlet this week. And so the way the Gauntlet changed its mechanics, yes, the ads hit harder, they were more difficult to kill. I think it almost looked as if there was more ads as well. But basically this time you get teleported in, and then the Scion that you always have to go punch would spawn, but another Scion somewhere else would pop up as well that had to be killed. So that was an additional mechanic. So each time you got them through a gate, there were actually 2 Scions to kill. One in the usual place, and another one kind of floating up somewhere.
Was that one of the shooty ones then, was it?
Yeah, one of the shooty ones. So that was the only initial change it looked like, until the Gauntlet runners came out, dunked their orb, and then they had a buff or a debuff, whatever you want to consider it, and it said deemed worthy. That meant that person could not go back into the Gauntlet.
Oh, nice.
Which, funnily enough, the streamer on Twitch, T-Rex, called that like weeks ago, saying, I bet that's what they're going to do for the Prestige. And sure enough, so basically the runner can't go twice. So you just have to, adapt, you switch it out. And then the other change was when it's the final run, when you're all inside, only 3 of the little orbs spawn. Which, if you think about it, is almost a bit easier. Because, it just means, right, me, you, and Gim get it this time. And we just keep alternating.
Pretty much.
You know what I mean? So, oh well. But that was the changes for the Gauntlet. After the Gauntlet was dogs. And believe it or not, there wasn't really that many changes with dogs. Except for the addition of 2 more.
Oh, nice.
So you've got 8 dogs. So there was different theories on how to do this. And what a lot of people ended up doing, Jay, was they just stayed as if they were doing it normally. But then they would, on their way back, maybe throw a cheeky grenade or something at that extra dog on the left and the extra dog on the right. And then what they all ended up doing, you still took care of your dog, but when you were finally doing that final kill, it just meant, you each kill your dog, and then all of the right side, all 3 of you then team up on that last one. And so it didn't seem to be too much of a struggle for most of the teams. Most of the teams, where they stalled and where they got held up the most was on bats, believe it or not. Again, enemies are harder, they're hitting harder, it takes more damage to kill them, but the bathers were now oiled bathers. So whenever you killed them, they left a little pool of purple goop, and this purple goop, if you touched it, would make your psionic protection tick down like there's no tomorrow.
Wow.
So I added a little mechanic there. Also, there was a lot more ads in the middle. So ad management became more of a priority. But again, that looked like the only real change until, if you didn't one phase the central part with the purple vats, what ended up happening was you would, depending on which platform you had been on, you would get a buff or a debuff, again, I would say deemed worthy, and you would see, 4 people would see a symbol in the middle, and that signified which platform they had to go to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a slight change in mechanic. Not the end of the world, but again, if you're not expecting that, you're like, well, what the shit's that about? Because, can you off the top of your head remember which corner of the room dogs is, which corner of the room axes is? Right? I mean, no, me neither. So that was that. Meanwhile, as per the usual flippin' Leviathan thing. You can imagine, loot-wise, they've been given shaders, tokens. I think up to this point, still nobody had got a piece of gear. I could be wrong. Maybe someone got a ghost. Oh no, someone got a mark, I think, on dogs or something. But the loot was, again, being ridiculous. Each encounter was giving them 5 tokens. So at least they had that going for them. And then finally, when they got to Callus, again, initially that didn't look like there was many mechanical changes. I mean, okay, yes, once again, the ads were a bit tougher, a bit harder to kill. But what ended up happening was when they went into the other realm, whatever the hell we call it, the dark side or whatever the hell, what would happen to the outside team, whoever punched the Scion would get teleported inside. And one of the other people would get teleported to the outside.
Oh, wow.
And that happened every time a Scion was punched. So that added a little a little bit of a difference. But really, for that encounter, that was it in a nutshell. That was really the only change to Callus that I can think of off the top of my head. So, I mean, as you can see, it's those slight mechanical changes, they're enough to make a difference. But when you hear how the raid was beaten, within 2 hours, it kind of makes sense, if you know what I mean, right? Because that's not huge, drastic changes. Like, for a team that can adapt and can, understand mechanics, it wouldn't be that much of a challenge, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because, it's just a simple change. But as far as challenge modes and stuff, who knows? I don't know what's going to happen with that. And what
are they going to be doing in challenge mode? Because, I mean, looking at Gauntlet, for example, that would be what I would have assumed something like challenge mode would have had to have been.
Exactly. How could you further modify that?
To be fair, I'm actually not surprised that Bath is a harder encounter in Prestige, and that's mainly because of how open you are within the fight. Like with dogs, it's very much you cock up. There's no sort of, I would say, obviously it's punishing, but it's not the end of the world. It's very hard to wipe on dogs as well. Like, really is. Gauntlet, again, you can retreat if you need to into the middle, and you can hide track of your ads. Whereas with Baths, you're open. I mean, you're stuck defending your plate. You're stuck defending the middle plate. And as you said, especially with these oil bathers, you've got to be careful you kill him, because if you kill him on your plate, you can't stand in it. And that's going to cause a lot of problems. So yeah, I'm not surprised that's the harder encounter. That's quite a hard encounter.
The thing I noticed yesterday, Jay, I basically had several streams up. You can imagine, right, on the monitors, I'm watching, because I was watching the race, so I had Dato's team up, I had Slayer Age's team up, I had Goth's team up, and I'm watching them, and what became very apparent, not so much on the Goth side. Goth's team, they were just having fun. They actually kept saying, look, we're not really making an attempt for world's first. We're just trying to have fun, blah, 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 blah. But what you could see in the other teams was the prestige mode highlighted any weak links. If someone wasn't up to scratch, it stuck out like a sore thumb. To the point where Slayer Age went silent. He was so pissed off he just couldn't speak. And then Dato, and if you've ever watched Dato's a pretty, he's an intelligent guy, right? He's very well spoken. He was losing his shit. He was just like, what's going on? What's that? Because people are dying, like, just constantly. Like, this one kid kept dying over and over and over. And he's like, look, what is actually happening? What is your problem? So it's a bit of a shame, because I know that Dato had this, he's been a top tier Destiny player for years. I mean, let's be honest. When it comes to figuring out mechanics, when it comes to working out the DPS of weapons, he has put in a lot of work over the years. And he has always wanted to have a world's first something in Destiny. So I was a bit gutted to see that he didn't get it. I think they ended up like 14th because of the fact that they kind of stalled. Yeah. The bats, they were there for ages upon ages.
That's the, I think, especially having moved from what they had with Destiny, and I think it really came from King's Fall. Not even necessarily King's Fall, actually, more it came apparent within Wrath of the Machines that they were leaning more towards, a bit in King's Fall, actually, to be fair, they were leaning more towards the player really having responsibility.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you historically look at Vault Glass to begin with, before the changes, you could force who went into the Two Realms, which obviously was changed, so it wasn't as forced, which was good. Then with Crota again, you had your sword bearer. Simple as that. You always had your main sword bearer until obviously, even in hard mode back in the day, that was still the case. Then with King's Fall, you had your set players really anyway for the calling of the plates on War Priest. Golgoroth, you had your two sort of tanks, apart from when it came to the challenge mode, which was the challenge mode, not the hard mode, the challenge mode. But you had to have the player swap. And then again, you look at Oryx himself, realistically, really, you had your set players who just stood on platforms who, were important, but they were nowhere near as important as the runner, or as in this case, what was during the time, the Ogre and Night Killers, who you had before the touch of Malice.
People just got into their comfort zone.
But then
they would just
Wrath kind of changed that, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Because you look previously, how many people would put in their like LFG post, run sword or something like that. There was certain aspects that people were only comfortable with doing. Like, oh hey, I'll come for the raid, but only if, or I always run left side. Oh, I always do this. They never experienced the other aspects.
I remember doing a challenge mode when the revamps came out, and we were playing in a team, and then we lost one of our sword bearers, who was a guy who was doing. Obviously, we had to have 3 different sword bearers at the time, and everybody was like, "Well, who wants to do it?" And I was like, "You know what? Fuck it, I'll go for it." We did, and I was like, "By the way, that's the first time I've actually properly run sword." They're like, what? But again, with Wrath, same thing. You look at first boss, not so much, but that didn't really have any sword people. I mean, you guys go get your orbs, you had to throw them, and at least one of you had to get into the room to knock it down. So, but again, Zamboni, as it was, you all had to carry the stuff at least. You had the one guy who went up to the top, and then with Axis itself, everybody played a pivotal role in that. You had nobody that could be thinking, because those empowerment swapped, especially the challenge mode, they swapped. It was never a guaranteed these 3 players are going to get it. And again, this is the exact same with Leviathan. I mean, you can have your set players, but not one, that's fine. But as you say, challenge mode, prestige mode, really throws out the window. I mean, dogs, not really much could change that anyway. Baths, they've made you rotate, which requires you to know what you're doing, know where you are. Obviously, Gauntlet, as you said. Yeah, to be fair, the Gauntlet running's not actually that difficult, to be perfectly honest with you. It's more importantly the people that are then swapping back out have then got to get their rhythm as who's shooting where on the arrows. And then again with Callus, which is quite a nice thing, I think. These guys being teleported out on him, that really changes up your group dynamic. It really changes. I mean, you've got to react. I mean, you've got to be quick to react when you get into the throne room of where your guys are, where your enemies are, and then likewise when you get into the Void Realm, you've got to react to the where am I going, what scions are up, or yada yada, so on and so forth. So it's so as you say, unfortunately, but weak players will get thing. But then games, let's take games of this genre, MMOs. Mate, I'll bring one up in this point. Did that anyway. I mean, you look at when DPS meters came out, you could highlight your crappy damage dealers. I mean, you could tell where somebody died when there was a fire pit and some guy died, and you're like, really, what are you doing? And then again, healers that couldn't keep up, or tanks that couldn't keep threat. And unfortunately, with games like this, especially with any team game, your weak links will slow you down, cause you problems.
And the more difficult the content, it just they show up all too easily. I mean,
it's the same, really.
And a lot of folk are also still salty that there isn't a power increase. But looking historically, a lot of people are replying to that saying, "Well, look, that's an expansion thing. That light level increases come with expansions. Not just a raid or something, and when you look back, you're like, oh yeah, no, that's kind of right, because when raids have came out in the past, they were like with DLCs and stuff, but originally, in the very first Destiny, the light level didn't go up when the first raid launched, and when the first raid hard mode launched, they didn't rise up, so it makes sense.
Problem was, though, again, I think the Destiny games expansions did this and everything, was you had 2 light level caps. You had your pre-hard mode raid cap, then you had your hard mode raid cap. King's Fall, I know for definite, did it, because you'd have your normal pieces you went through in the hard mode drop at lower power level or light, what it was then. I think that's what some people might be more annoyed about, is they should really have gone, you know what, we'll make, even if they would have gone, we'll make 305 the max level, but we'll make the raid only got 300 to begin with, and then
they just assumed when you saw on the gear when it, like a lot of the weapons said max was 350.
Yeah.
So some people were salty about that, but on the other hand, you know, because okay, a lot of people are also saying as well, oh, there's no point in doing the prestige. Well, guess what? The raid armor, yeah, it looks good. It's got like a glowy effect, like an aspect to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does look really, really nice. The shader as well looks really, really nice. And then of course the sick aura, which was more like flames.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, really nice, that kind of orangey, reddish. So pretty cool.
And obviously the power weapon as well. We can't just ignore that. I don't know what's happened with that. Did they get the weapon just straight up afterwards, or is there other stuff to still do?
At the end of the quest, they ended up having to see the broom bot and got an ornament for it.
Oh.
And so it changed it to a nice kind of same as the raid weapons, that kind of white kind of thing. But that was basically an ornament for the weapon. So yay.
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah, indeed.
Right, moving on to something we actually discussed previously when it was rumoured, and that of course is about the NVIDIA GTX 1070 Ti. Now this is from WCCF Tech, so of course take it with a grain of salt. But hey, guess what? There are actual Firestrike Extreme and TimeSpy benchmarks have been leaked for the 1070 Ti. Looks like it's clocked at 1886 megahertz boost frequency. Now this is interesting because a week or two ago there was a rumor saying that the 1070 Ti wasn't going to be overclockable. Again, keyword rumor. But so based off of the scores that we're looking at, I mean, it looks like that in the TimeSpy benchmark, the 1070 Ti gets a score of about 6700. Which is good because an overclocked 1070 only gets, you know, in the 6000 range at a much lower clock speed. So it's quite interesting because if you compare this to a Radeon RX Vega 56, that's about the ballpark of score. So it looks like the 1070 Ti is a direct response to the Vega 56, because whilst the 64 couldn't keep up with the 1080 Ti, the 56, however, was doing a pretty darn good job of giving a 1070 a run for its money. Now, of course, the complication is video card prices, you know, and that unfortunately still makes the Vega 56 not the cheap option it should be. But if you could actually get a Vega 56 for its recommended retail price, it's actually a really, really good deal. Especially if we're talking about gamers who are going to be gaming in 1080 or even 1440p. If you want a game in 4K though, you know, you are going to need a bit more horsepower. In Firestrike Extreme, however, the card scores about 9449, about 9.5K, which is about 500 points lower than the Vega 56. Keep in mind though that of course these NVIDIA drivers will be early. You know, so you can't really form a full opinion yet. At least we're just seeing this is pretty decent proof that a 1070 Ti is coming out at some point. We don't know when, you know, but it looks pretty good. It looks like it's got decent compute performance. You know, we're looking at about 9 teraflops. It's using the same architecture, you know, the GP104 graphics core as the 1070 and the T80, which a lot of people are saying, you know, what's actually happened here is these are 1080s that haven't binned very well. They've got less CUDA cores than what a 1080 is supposed to have, and they're just being rebadged as a 1070 Ti, which makes sense. That's cheaper for NVIDIA if they've got a whole stockpile of these 1080 rejects. That they can just slap on, you know, 1070 Ti badging. You know, it completely makes sense because when you compare CUDA cores, right? The 1070 has 1920, a 1080 has 2560, and this 1070 Ti, it's not even slap dab in the middle. It's closer to a 1080. It's got about 2400 CUDA cores. So it looks like a good card. Allegedly, it'll probably be around the $400 range. It'll have 8 gigs of RAM, just like the 1070, just like the 1080. The memory speed itself is slightly slower than a 1080, but on par with a 1070. It looks like a decent card. It'll be interesting to see when it actually comes out. What folk will be saying about it, because there's another, there's still these rumors going around about it's going to be feature locked and the clocks are only going to have a certain limit, but only time will tell. We shall have to see. It's just nice to see more options for us when it comes to video cards. I just really wish that this whole digital currency mining crap would just go away or find something else to use, because for too long, I was looking at some charts just yesterday, Jay, and I did not realize how bad the prices were out of hand. Did you realize that memory, that RAM, right? If you look historically, it has doubled in price since this time last year.
Bloody hell.
Whether that's DDR3 or DDR4, because a lot of people like myself, I'm still on DDR3. It was the cheaper option. It was, easier for me to just upgrade my motherboard, my CPU, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, double the price. And when it comes to video cards, AMD cards have been on this steady rise. Nvidia has went up a little bit, but it's stabilized. And it's just a shame. I mean, there's a really awesome YouTuber, Paul's Hardware. And he put out a great video just the other day saying why right now is a horrible time to build a gaming PC because of these prices. So it's a bit of a shame. So so let that be a lesson. Just don't be in any rush, Jane. I know you want to get some nice fancy new stuff. Just hold off, sir. Because I mean, even what gen was your CPU?
Oh god, I genuinely can't remember. It's quite an old gen. I really can't actually remember.
I have to look that up sometime, because
I will have to, yeah.
Because depending on, I was looking again, right? I was like, I wonder if it's time for me to upgrade yet, right? Now I've got a 4th gen i7, the 4790K, which is codenamed Devil's Canyon, and I kept looking up to see, okay, is this possibly a bottleneck in this day and age? And still, most of the recommendations say, now, yeah, okay, if we're talking about video production and stuff, yes, an upgrade would benefit me. But from a gaming point of view, there's absolutely no point. My processor still is not a bottleneck for a 1080 Ti. So, I'm in a very weird place where it comes to my kind of main system. There's no reason for me to upgrade it at this point in time, unless I wanted, more threads. If I wanted to hop on that Ryzen bandwagon for video rendering and whatnot, but for gaming and stuff, nope. The 4th gen seems to be a strange spot where, and it's the same with the i5s for gaming and stuff. They're still, they're quite strong. So I mean, that's the only reason I ask. If you're earlier than that, then yeah, you're gonna see a benefit. But if it is, a 4th or newer, then you're probably okay for quite a little while. So you are, especially since you've got SLI and those cards as well. That's gonna keep you going for a good while.
That is.
So it should.
It's a pity, isn't it, though, that we've got to wait until the cards come out really to get a good grasp of how good they're going to be. Like, it's all this lovely speculations and rumours.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I mean, look at Vega. Vega was hyped up and it looked like it was going to be amazing, and then it came out and it's okay. But again, maybe driver optimization will help that out. I mean, it's the same with a 1080 Ti. A 1080 Ti is an amazing card, but some of the AAA titles, once you put everything to Ultra and try to run it at 4K, it, you can kiss goodbye to 60 frames per second. You know? And is that clever marketing? Do we think that Nvidia is capable of releasing a card right now that could probably tear through that content, quite easily at high frames? Of course they probably could.
Of course they could.
It's the same. I always remember being told years ago, and I won't even name my source just in case it's trouble, but this person was in the oil industry. And back in the early, was it 90s, maybe late 80s, a car company back then had developed an engine that would do 100 miles to the gallon. Right? And that's back then. And, you know, it was quashed. You know, basically the oil company's like, no, this isn't coming out. Right? We can't let this happen. So the whole kind of concept of, you know, the industry holding back on technology, holding back on things, you know, it's the same with the processors. I mean, let's be honest, Intel and everyone would get incremental upgrades. That's not because of limitations, that's by design. You know, if they were to come out with the all singing, all dancing, you know, quantum processor that's just amazing, we'd all just buy that right now and never have to upgrade ever again. It just...
Yep, exactly that.
It's not smart business. Speaking of business, how about some shady business? This is from Eurogamer.net, and this is about, well, one of our past loves, Jay. Come on, a game that both of us would have dumped so much time into. And this is about World of Warcraft. But it's not about the World of Warcraft that maybe you're used to playing. This is, of course, about Elysium. And Elysium was the unofficial servers. You know, it was the private/pirate world of vanilla, depending on your point of view. There was a server, well, a service called Nostalrius, and basically it had vanilla WoW servers set up. So all of these folk that were nostalgic, wanted to play classic WoW could. And you might remember that in the news. It was this huge thing, big debate, whether it was piracy, blah, 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 blah. Well, anyway, Elysium had taken over. And Elysium has now imploded over allegations that the people in charge were pocketing donations and they were creating gold and characters to sell to players on their own servers for real money. Holy crap. This... Because do you remember, Jay, the arguments that Elysium was trying to give? Like, oh no, they were all about the player and trying to give, you know, them what they wanted. They wanted to serve the community.
You know what's, I'm pretty sure I played on those servers, and I'm pretty sure me and Nate did at one point, because we did go back, and I'm pretty sure it was them and them, whatever it was before, and lost, whatever it was. But yeah, no, it's a shame really, isn't it, to see people, if this is true, doing this. It's unfortunate, really.
It's a shame. Basically, what happened was, and this article is actually a couple of days old, so this happened earlier this week. But basically, a coup was led by a splinter group who completely wiped and took down the Elysium servers after having made their own backups. So they basically hijacked Elysium in order to continue a purer service of their own. And their statement, this group, by the way, is called the Lights Hope Group, said, due to failures to uphold the project's ideals and integrity, the Elysium project is being dissolved and relaunched out of the control of those who have abused the trust of the staff, community, and legacy movement as a whole. And so it's been alleged that the project's former leader, Shanna, has taken at least roughly 2,000 euros or more for personal financial reasons. And that another senior project member, I believe this is pronounced Krog or Kroge, was running a gold and character selling business on the side. There are pieces of chat log evidence appearing to back this up. So, wow. Yeah, so basically the core team of Elysium they're stepping down. They're obviously trying to avoid too much drama, I guess. And what this group, Lights Hope, who basically took over, you know, they said, look, we're currently working to bring all the realms back online. Elysium will continue to run, and despite what many people believe, we will not be shutting down. Further comments about downtime. Oh, in response to allegations, so this is actually from Elysium themselves, not this splinter group. Further comments about downtime and response to allegations will be made later. Ouch. You know, what was already a controversial issue this just...
The thing is, as well, is it's going to cause them a lot of trust issues with their player base and whatnot, because obviously this is not exactly a small allegation, is it? Really, it's not exactly. You've had one player, like one dev potentially, joining in and cheating his way to the top. Whatever. This is real people's money and everything, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's just a shame when you look at the history and how, the debate that happened in 2016 with, when Nostalrius was actually kind of shut down by Blizzard. They actually, there was this huge petition about that happening, and Blizzard basically had invited the Nostalrius team to Blizzard HQ for a meeting. So it was amazing. This was like a big deal. Nothing ever really came of that. And then, that's when the Elysium team basically kind of picked up the scraps. But what a shame for all that hard work and effort to be put in, only to find out that, well, wait a minute, these guys have actually been kind of, doing some shady stuff. This was supposed to be a pure vanilla experience, and there they are, actually trying to make a bit of personal gain out of it.
Yep.
Oh my. What? It's quite interesting. The same with the timing too, because BlizzCon is only a couple of weeks away, right? 3rd of November.
Well, because as it says at the end, they have been waiting from last BlizzCon about these sort of private servers anyway. So again, sort of anticipating it this year again, but yeah, timing's not great though, is it?
No, bit of a shame. Because I mean, the thing that worries me is if they were doing that stuff themselves, then is there a chance they were selling, your details, like your email address, off to? Because did you have to? I'm assuming you had to have an email, right, to sign up for these servers.
I believe so. I can't actually remember. It was a long time ago. But yeah, I mean,
it would just bring that into question for me. If they were willing to basically cheat, their loyal players and actually create their own gold service to sell to people, would it be past them to actually, pass on info? Because let's be honest, there are people out there, right, that would, if they were WoW players and they wanted to play on the Elysium servers or whatever, I can guarantee you, not the majority, probably not a huge amount, but there would be people that would use the exact same login on the private server that they would on the actual Blizzard server.
More than likely.
I can almost guarantee there would be. So then, is it too far of a stretch to imagine that, the owners could have possibly as well kind of passed on that information to some of these, dirty, horrible account sellers and whatnot?
Could done.
It's tricky. It's tricky. But bit of a shame. But we'll see. We'll see what comes of that. See what happens.
Yep.
Speaking of the dark side of the internet and nefarious, seedy things, this is another article that has had the internet in an uproar. Now, since it's been published, there's been a lot of kind of tap dancing, a lot of backtracking, a lot of clarifications. But of course, this is I sourced this from GameSpot, and this has been about this algorithm for encouraging microtransactions. Now, okay, it's fair to begin by saying that yes, Activision has made a statement saying that this patent was filed only in an exploratory sense, and such a system has not been used in any games, right? So that's the official statement from Activision. And the patent itself was filed in 2015 by a research and development team working independently from their game studios. And again, it's reiterated that the system itself has not been implemented in the game. But I'm assuming, Jay, do you want to take us through this? What the hell was this algorithm doing?
So, from what I can gather, basically, it was almost looking at putting players that had spent money on stuff with potentially lower, weaker players in games and such that haven't, almost in an attempt to make these lower level players or whatnot, or lower power players, if you want to call them, think, oh, these guys got some really cool stuff, and they want that exact same stuff as them, which is through this microtransaction. So I can't remember what they called it now. They said for a system of method for encouraging players to spend money on microtransactions. So again, putting a player who's got, like, as they say, expert sniper skills with less skilled player, and the idea that the player with less skill would see the better player performing well, which in turn might encourage them to spend money on microtransactions. And another one, which is actually very interesting, was if you brought we'll use a gun for example, that worked, was you paid real money for, worked pretty good. They'd put you into instances or stuff where it would be the favoured place for the weapon to be used. So it makes it feel like what you've brought is overpowered, or more powerful than it would be, forcing you to maybe think, oh, you know what, I might actually buy some more of the guns that they've got. And it's in essence, it's looking at matching players with other players of different calibers based around their microtransaction spending as such. A high spending player that have a low spending player, or low power player with a high power player, due to the high power player having spent this money, or in this case again instancing or putting them into areas where what they've purchased makes it seem more powerful, which is very, I'd say it's almost clever in a way, and quite a clever business tactic, and almost marketing tactic. But wow, I mean, who comes up with this kind of idea to go, you know what, let's just think of a way to make players,
I mean,
money.
It's just like you said, all the information, all the things that this algorithm does, like, the combination of it could possibly, look at your history itself. So if you bought something, like you said, immediately put you in a situation where you're like, oh man, I'm so glad I bought that. Shit, I'm going to buy something else. Or likewise, if you haven't bought a single thing, and deliberately matchmake you against people that have, and you go, oh man, I got killed by that, whatever again. I keep seeing that in the store. Oh, you know what? Yeah, man, these guys keep wrecking me. I'm going to go ahead and buy that. It's scary. It makes me think, next time you're playing an Activision game and you're waiting for quite a while in that matchmaking process, I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
You're doing it.
The Destiny 2 team has categorically said this has not been implemented. It is not part of our game, which, to be fair, I mean, come on, most of the stuff that you can buy in Destiny 2 is only...
I was going to say, it's mainly cosmetic stuff.
It's mainly cosmetic stuff.
I mean, potentially they could say, there could be an algorithm of it where it goes, we'll place you with people that have got this armor because they look cooler. But then, again, there's no guarantee that's always going to get used. And to be honest with you, there's no guarantee that's going to force you to buy stuff. As you said, because it's mainly cosmetic items.
It's the same with Call of Duty and Overwatch, right? I know Overwatch is still only cosmetic, but does Call of Duty have items that are of actual benefit, like premium knives or guns, maybe?
I think they might have had... I know the guns had, like, at least in Infinite Warfare, I think it was, there was different, like, levels of guns, like epics and things, but I can't remember. I don't think you could automatically buy them. I think there's a good chance of you getting them through packages sometimes. I can't remember my exact thing, but I think it was more effective in Call of Duty, to be honest with you, if I remember correctly. I can't remember that though, so don't obviously quote me on that, because...
Hey, don't need to. This is video. You've quoted yourself.
Yeah, I'll quote myself. Don't
Burn!
take it as gospel. Don't take it as gospel, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I do remember playing... when I was playing the COD Infinite Warfare, that there was different, like, weapons with different different perks on almost to it. It's a pain in the arse from playing online, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, but it's interesting though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of these things that, I mean, okay, it's a patent from quite a couple of years ago, and yeah, they're saying left and right that it's not in any games, but it's interesting to see that you could see that where their head's at, that they actually had an R&D team look into it, do something, and go, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, it's possible.
It's more scary. Like, I never, until seeing this article, that I never even thought of that as being a possibility, and that's what the scary thing is.
This is the thing. I mean, you get so used to, like, you're using your computer for so many things. Nowadays, people that use mobile banking and, all their email, all these types of things, and I used to laugh at people who, did these silly things like on a laptop that has an integrated webcam, putting a little bit of electrical tape on it, or making sure that, like, I mean, my microphone, for example, right? I mean, this stays plugged in, all the time when my computer's on, but there's people who would religiously unplug it because you never know who's listening. And I used to always think, these are the type of people that are living in their parents' basements wearing tinfoil hats. But honestly, we forget how easy it is to get your digital footprint. For all these browsers that you use, all these EULAs that you end up signing up for games and applications, that your data, your browsing patterns, all of this stuff is important to people and can be used to, target you. I mean, I got a story from a work colleague who had, it was a couple of years back, they got a really cool smart TV, one of the ones that had the voice controls.
Yeah.
And no shit, right? They were discussing at home about possibly trading in their car. And 2 days later, maybe it's just a coincidence, out of the blue, the local Volkswagen dealership cold called them. And they're saying, "Oh, hello, Mr. So-and-so. I believe you're in the market for a new vehicle." And it's like, wait, what? He didn't look online, he didn't do it. It was just a conversation they had.
Yep.
Could have just been a coincidence, but who knows? But yeah, you have to be careful with what, data is available, and so stuff like that makes sense. You make a purchase on your console, and we just automatically trust that, hey, we know that Microsoft's doing a good job, right, of keeping our details safe, right, because those of us that have our PayPal or our debit card linked to our Microsoft account, right, that's one thing. But what about these kind of things in game? So yes, like Destiny, for example, they don't have access to our credit card info, right? That's all handled via Microsoft. But they can still see how much we bought and when.
Yep.
So if you look at that data, right? Like if, for example, say you get paid the 15th of every month, and every payday you buy a little bit of silver, but then next month, you don't, or whatever, then maybe the month after, they'll make sure to queue up something really cool to buy. Like maybe one of those items, that, like an ornament you don't have but you really want. And they queue it up because they know you haven't bought silver in the last month. I don't think it's that far of a stretch.
Well, that's the thing though, isn't it? You look at what this article says and you think, there could be scary stuff. They could look at your spending habits. They could look at... obviously, at the end of the day, to be fair, if you look at it, it really is a business strategy, isn't it? You look at... take a supermarket, for example, or shops, they'd look at what stock was being sold, where, and if they want to put offers on to try and, ship certain stuff or things like that, and they notice customer trends, but not to the extent of on an individual basis. Mm-hmm. And that's where you think, well, if they're going to start doing that, is it going to be a bit crazy like that? But yeah, no, it's a little bit scary to think, it's not something you really consider or think of, and then suddenly you see it and you're like, holy crap.
Yeah, hold on.
That could actually
wait a minute.
Be the case. Like, as you said, but knows my matchmaking's been a bit slow recently.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, we sometimes we wait in orbit for a long time. Just saying.
I've now realised why I keep getting weaseled. Like we can't put you with people that have that spent money. We just can't find people for you. And I'm like, well, it's clearly what's happening.
They can't find anyone that spent more money than you. That's the problem. Right, time for one final little bit of news. We'll try to keep this brief. This is from PC Gamer, and again, will also be on all the kind of official channels on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere you can imagine. And that is the Windows 10 Fall Creators Update, the FCU for short, is out now. Now, this was released to insiders quite a little while back, but just the other day it has now officially been launched. I updated yesterday. I updated my actual PC, and I also updated my Windows 10 tablet. And from a personal point of view, I was impressed. My tablet, which I've had now for a couple of years, And it runs fine. It's my daily driver, when I'm at school. But it is also a gaming tablet, so, the one that has the controller and stuff and links directly to the Xbox and to Steam for the in-home game streaming. And I'll tell you what, once it updated, it took a little while. I actually tried to do it several times and had errors, but when it finally did update, the tablet runs a hell of a lot better. And even today, my home PC, which, this battle station is quite fast to begin with, but I swear to God, it's snappier. Like, how when I don't know if you've ever experienced, but Windows 10, sometimes you push the Windows button and it takes like quite a while for the menu to actually pop up.
Yes.
It doesn't anymore. There's been quite a few little tweaks they've added. Now if you go to Task Manager, not only can you see, how you can pull up the little graphs for your CPU and your memory and hard drive usage and all that, right? When you Control-Alt-Delete J,
yep,
and get your Task Manager. Well, they've actually added GPU in there as well. So now, if you're, say, rendering something and using your GPU, you can even select, whether it's 3D rendering, whether it's gaming. It doesn't have temperatures or anything like that, but chances are if you're a gamer, you're probably using other software for that anyway. Which, to be honest, a lot of gamers do use this separate software, but it's nice to see now that's being integrated into Windows 10. There shouldn't be too many issues. I know that I have just recently learned of a possible issue for myself. If I can pull this up, where are we hiding? Let's see, Elgato Gaming. Yeah, if I get this tweet, because I saw this, I was out at the house, and keep in mind, right, I updated to Windows 10. I did the update yesterday for the Creators Update, and I saw this message on Twitter from Elgato, and it says, "Hey, HD60 Pro users," which is me, "update to today's Game Capture 3.6 release before updating to Windows 10 Fall Creator Update." I was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And so sure enough, there's a Reddit thread, and it's basically saying that, look, there's been some weird problems with the update, and the HD60 Pro driver gets stuck in a reboot loop, and the firmware of the card goes blank. And I'm like, oh shit. And it's saying, look, you have to do this before you do the Creators Update. If you're already on the update, you've got 3 different options. Plug it into a different computer that's not running it, plug it into a different slot and try the steps above, or downgrade to the previous version of Windows 10. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm going to stand with that. I just tested my Elgato before we started Jungle Drums, and it's working fine. It did prompt me to update, and I just hit no for now. So in its current state, it works just fine. So I might just wait it out. I might just not update the Elgato software. You know what I mean? Because it seems that they're blaming it on the Fall Creators Update, yet my card works absolutely fine, and that's with the Fall Creators update installed. So I think it's more to do with their Elgato's new driver or something. I think, you know what I mean? I think, I'm not trying to call you out, Elgato, but it just seems to me, and I've seen other reports, people saying, what do you mean? I've been an insider, I've been on the update for like weeks now, and my HD60 Pro works just fine. It's just the HD60 Pro that's affected. But yeah, so aside from that, the Falls Creator Update looks pretty cool. They didn't have any major kind of changes to game mode that I can see. Gaming wasn't a big focus. I mean, they did make minor improvements. Mixer's been improved, and game mode you can now switch to from inside a game. Mixer's even better. You can launch and jump into a game stream faster than before. And of course, what the Fall Creators Update introduces is the support for the mixed reality headsets, the ones that have been released from Acer, Dell, HP, Lenovo. So that's quite interesting. But at the end of this article, I'm assuming you got to this, Jay, this is what really got my attention. Microsoft announced the Surface Book 2. Now, Surface Books they're too expensive for my liking. I mean, they're really quality pieces of kit, but they are not cheap, right? I've got a good friend of mine, and she has a Surface Book for work and everything, and it's amazing. You know, she doesn't have any other computer. All she needs is her Surface Book. They're that powerful. And so these new Surface Book 2s are going to have 8th gen Intel Coffee Lake processors and NVIDIA GTX 1050 and 1060 GPUs. So we're talking about
how much are they going to cost?
You're looking at probably in dollars. You know,
so in pounds as well, then really.
Yeah, if you want one with an i7 and a 1060 in it, you're talking about 2,500.
Bloody hell. It's not cheap then.
Not cheap. But again, a Surface Book though is super, super skinny, right? They're really, really slim. They're beautiful. And what they're saying with these new Surface Book 2s, they're powerful enough to handle the most popular PC games at 1080p and 60 frames per second, and in some cases, matching the graphics performance of an Xbox One.
Oh, game changer that is.
That's quite... Again, we're talking about from something that's thin as all hell. You know what I mean? That's the big problem with gaming laptops. Like proper hardcore gaming laptops. Let's be honest, they're as thick as a Bible. They're loud. They have a power brick that's, you know, the size of a flippin', I don't know, a Yule log or something. Whereas Surface Books have always been, you know, for the professional. They're very small, they're very slender, they're very light, and they're very energy efficient. But so for these Surface Book 2s to be that powerful, I mean, okay, that's a high price tag, don't get me wrong, but that's pretty damn cool to think that you could have this really small, light device.
Yeah, not something heavy you have to carry around. So the other thing is how much heat's happening going to kick out.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, the Surface Books have been so light in the past that, you know, they didn't need much cooling. Now, you're right to bring this up because what we've seen so far from Coffee Lake does run quite hot to the point where most of the hardcore tech folk out there are recommending to de-lid the processor. Because basically, like, you know how when you look at a CPU, you just see the big metal plate that says on Intel. Well, obviously that's not your actual processor, that's just a metal plate. And what they've got between that metal plate and the actual die of the CPU is a thermal interface material. And different generations, they've been good or decent or okay, and allegedly the newest one's pretty crap, to the point where if you de-lid it, and they've got these beautiful little contraptions which make it real easy, right? You put your CPU in and you just turn this little crank and it takes the lid off. You get rid of that thermal interface material, and there's this product called liquid metal, which is effectively like it's even more metallic than, you know, the kind of stuff you're used to using when you install a CPU, you know, the Arctic Silver or whatever. It's even more, it almost looks like mercury. Remember like the old toys that had mercury in them, like the mazes? It almost looks like that. And you spread that on the die, and then when you put the lid back on, it actually forms an amazing bond that has, I mean, the efficiency, we're talking about like a 20-degree difference.
Oh, wow.
When you de-lid and do thermal interface material. So that's how these people on Coffee Lakes are like hitting 5.2 gig and still having reasonable temperatures. It just makes it a lot more efficient. So your question actually really makes me interested, because I'm curious how these Coffee Lakes are going to be. I would imagine they'll have, it won't be the desktop Coffee Lakes. They'll have some special mobile that doesn't use up as much.
I mean, if you look at the laptops, how they get hot anyway. If you look at gaming laptops, they can get very, very hot. So it'd be interesting to see how they handle that. And again, because you say obviously the other ones, they've been quite power efficient. But if you're running all this stuff on full blown, you know, I want full 1080p gaming, again, how power efficient is that going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine it'll eat up quite a bit of power. I mean, I've had two gaming laptops over the years. I mean, they're a very long time ago. One was basically an Alienware. It was actually a Sager, but it was the same body as the first gen Alienware laptops, and it had a Pentium 4 at 2.8, and it had what video card was that? A Radeon, an ATI at the time, 9000 or something. And that got really, really hot because it was a desktop processor. That laptop eventually died because it couldn't handle the power that was in it. Years later, I got a Dell XPS, and it was a gaming laptop, and this thing was gorgeous. It had brushed aluminium as the deck of the laptop. It had a Core... Oh, remember those Core 2 Duos when they had came along? So it was a really good multi-core chip. And for graphics, I can't remember the series. It was, I don't know, like I think at the time, was it possibly an 8000 series or something? Because remember, we used to have the GeForce, like the 6800, then we went to like the 79. It might have been like an 8600 GT or something in there. And I was playing WoW. At the time, that laptop was faster than my desktop. And it was amazing. But that thing got so hot that, like, your hands, because it had a brushed aluminium top, like, my left hand that would be on, the keyboard using it would actually get really, really hot. And because my hands would get sweaty from playing and because it was getting hot, it actually screwed up the aluminium. and that's another laptop that eventually the video card died in it because it got too hot. And that's me using an extreme Arctic cooling pad, that went between the desk or, my lap or whatever and the laptop. Technology's changed and they've gotten better, but still, the hardcore gaming laptops of today, once you've enabled game mode, like you say, if you're not plugged in, you're probably not even going to get that great performance because they need to be plugged in to get full performance. But then the thing sounds like an airplane trying to take off. And even then, we're talking about the CPUs and the video cards being on the verge of hitting thermal limit, which with any component isn't good. You're basically killing it. You're taking away from its longevity.
Slow death.
A slow, hot death.
Yep.
Not a nice thing. Not a nice thing at all. But right, so that is this week's episode of Jungle Drums. Thank you if you tuned in live. If you didn't tune in live, don't worry about it. Chances are you're watching this right now at scholarlygamers.com. Make sure to visit us every day of the week for a new item of news or a review. We're getting contacted, Jay. The guys, the team's been working hard to send out letters, emails to all these different companies, and we're getting contacted quite a bit. There's a good chance that I'm going to be doing a cheeky little review, which I'll tell you about off air, possibly, because there is an embargo and all that. It hasn't been confirmed if I'm going to do it or not yet, but hopefully so. But we're getting more, codes and stuff, so hopefully more content will be coming your way. Of course, maybe you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you're probably watching on my YouTube channel. And if so, you know what to do. Make sure to stay up to date for content from me, but also make sure to check out the Scholarly Gamers YouTube. We don't have that much stuff on there yet, but hey, you got to start from somewhere, right? And we're going to hopefully grow that channel as time goes on. Thank you so much to Sergeant J for joining me this evening.
Cheers.
Always a pleasure. And
always.
We will see you again next week, same time, and hopefully we'll have some juicy news for you then. In the meantime, that's us. Take it easy.
Au revoir.